Hey, my name is Evan. I'm 24. 2 months ago, my mom's best friend pressed against me in our narrow pantry during a charity gala, and I could smell that citrus vanilla hand cream she always wore. Her breath warmed my ear as she whispered, "Do you like older women?" I looked into her eyes and said the worst truth I know. "Only you." She stepped back, shook her head, and whispered, "Don't look at me like that." Then looked back twice. Until that moment, I was just the guy who moved home to save money, fixing equipment at the country club gym. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I moved back home at 24 to save money. Simple as that. Mom didn't ask why I needed to save, and I didn't volunteer the information about the credit cards or the studio apartment that cost more than my truck was worth. The house on Maple Crest looked the same: beige siding, flower boxes Mom replanted every spring. 2 doors down, the Whitmores had their perfect lawn and their perfect Range Rover in a perfect driveway that never had oil stains. I'd been home 3 weeks when Mom decided to host the annual charity gala for the Children's Literacy Foundation. She did this every year, turned our kitchen into mission control for 50 donors who wrote checks and felt good about themselves. "Evan, honey, could you help me move the good china?" Mom called from the dining room that Thursday evening. The dishwasher hummed its familiar tune, always hummed during these events. I was reaching for the top shelf when someone squeezed past me into the pantry. The space was narrow, dark, built for one person, maybe two if they knew each other well. Claire Whitmore pressed against my back for just a second as she reached for the extra napkins. Her hand cream smelled like citrus and vanilla. Always did. I'd noticed it at neighborhood barbecues, at the mailbox cluster, anywhere she happened to be. "Excuse me," she whispered. I turned around in the tight space. We were close enough that I could see the small lines at the corners of her eyes. She was beautiful in a way that didn't need makeup, though she wore it anyway. Perfectly applied. Everything about Claire was perfectly applied. "Do you like older women?" The question came out soft, breathless, like she'd been holding it in her chest for weeks and couldn't keep it there anymore. I stared at her. The pantry felt smaller, warmer. Her breath warmed my ear, and I said the worst truth I know. "Only you." Her face changed. Something cracked open behind her eyes, then snapped shut just as fast. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered, but she looked back twice as we walked out of the pantry together. The next morning, I sat at Mom's kitchen table with coffee and yesterday's newspaper. The dishwasher had finished its cycle, but the sound seemed to linger in the walls. Mom hummed while she organized donor packets. "Claire's so helpful with these events," Mom said without looking up. "Graham travels so much for work. I think she gets lonely." I nodded and turned a page I wasn't reading. 20 minutes later, Claire knocked on the back door. She wore a cream-colored sweater that made her look softer than the polished version from last night. Her hair was pulled back, but pieces had escaped. She looked real. "Morning, Marla." "Evan." She nodded at us both, but her eyes lingered on mine for half a second too long. "I brought the serving trays we talked about." "You're an angel," Mom said, taking the trays. "Evan, could you help Claire with whatever else she needs from her car?" We walked to her driveway in silence. The morning air was cool, damp from overnight rain. Claire opened her trunk and handed me a box of auction programs. "About last night," she started. "We don't have to talk about it." "Yes, we do." She pulled out another box, heavier this time. "What I asked, what you said, it can't happen again." "Okay? I mean it, Evan." "I know." She looked at me for a long moment. "You're too young to understand what you'd be risking." "Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely." She closed the trunk with more force than necessary. "I'm married. I'm your mother's best friend. I'm lonely," I said. The word hung between us like a confession neither of us wanted to hear. She told me not to look at her like that, then looked back twice. By Monday, I'd convinced myself nothing had changed. I went to my job at the country club gym, fixing treadmills and replacing light bulbs and pretending I didn't know Claire's morning routine. She ran every day at 7:30, always the same treadmill. Second row, third machine from the left. She wore gray leggings and a black tank top and wireless earbuds that never seemed to stay in quite right. My buddy Noah managed the gym. We'd gone to high school together, and he was one of those guys who noticed everything and said half of what he noticed out loud. Your mom's friend runs here, he said Tuesday morning while we changed out a broken belt. Lots of people run here. Not lots of people make you clean the same machine 3 times. I didn't answer. Noah grinned and went back to his paperwork. That Wednesday, Claire came in earlier than usual, 7:15. The rubber belt whir of the treadmills was the only sound in the mostly empty gym. She nodded at the front desk where Noah was reading something on his phone. Morning, she said. Morning, Mrs. Whitmore. Treadmill three's ready to go. She glanced at me, then quickly away. I was replacing a bulb in the display case. Normal work. Normal reason to be there. But my hands shook slightly as I twisted the new bulb into place. After her run, she stopped at the water fountain near the equipment room. I was organizing repair tools in a cabinet nearby. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For being professional. For keeping things normal. I nodded and went back to the tools. She walked away, and I told myself the tightness in my chest was from the physical work. Thursday morning brought rain. Hard, steady rain that drummed against the gym windows and made the treadmills seem louder. Claire came in shaking water from her jacket. Rough morning, Noah said from behind the desk. Just wet. She smiled, but it looked tired. Is the back treadmill working? The one by the windows? All yours, Noah said. Evan just finished the maintenance check. I looked up from the weight machine I was adjusting. Our eyes met. She looked away first, but not quickly enough to hide what I saw there. The same thing I felt when I watched her from Mom's kitchen window. The same thing that made me take the long way to the mailbox, just to see if she might be checking hers. She ran for 35 minutes. I timed it without meaning to. When she finished, she stood by the back windows for a moment, looking out at the rain. Her forehead was damp with sweat. Her wedding ring caught the fluorescent light. I was replacing a sensor in the fire alarm system, had to use a stepladder to reach it. Normal work, normal ladder. But when I glanced down, she was watching me. Not watching the work. Watching me. The neighbor's gate squeaked, and our hands forgot each other. Actually, that happened Friday afternoon. Mom had asked me to help Claire move some frames from her car to the gallery downtown where she worked. The gallery specialized in local artists and held fundraising events for various causes. Claire was good at talking donors into writing bigger checks. The frames were heavy, antique wood with thick glass. We carried them from her car to the back entrance of the gallery, making 3 trips in total. On the last trip, we reached for the same frame at the same time. Our hands touched, not accidentally, not briefly. Her fingers were soft from that citrus vanilla hand cream she always used. Her wedding ring pressed against my knuckle. Neither of us pulled away. Then Mrs. Delaney's gate squeaked 2 blocks away as she came out to water her flower boxes, and we both stepped back like we'd been caught stealing. I should go, I said. Yes, but neither of us moved for another 10 seconds. The gallery smelled like wood polish and paper dust. It always smelled like that, but I'd never noticed how much I liked the combination until I found myself thinking about it later that night. Saturday was the neighborhood barbecue, annual tradition. Someone brought a grill to the small park at the end of our cul-de-sac. Everyone contributed something, and we pretended to care about HOA business while eating potato salad and drinking beer. I helped Mom carry her famous 7-layer bean dip and a pan of cornbread. Claire and Graham arrived with expensive wine and store-bought dessert plates that probably cost more than my truck payment. Graham shook my hand. Firm grip, direct eye contact, the kind of confidence that came from never doubting you belonged anywhere. Good to see you, Evan. How's the job treating you? Can't complain. That's the spirit. Work hard, stay focused. He clapped my shoulder like a coach giving a pep talk, then walked away to talk business with someone else's husband. Claire set the dessert plates on the main table. She wore a sundress that made her look younger and more approachable than her usual gallery attire. Her hair was loose, catching the late afternoon light. Evan! Mom called from across the park. Could you help Mrs. Patterson with her folding chairs? I spent the next hour helping various neighbors with various tasks, moving coolers, adjusting table umbrellas, listening to Mr. Davidson explain why the HOA fees needed to increase again. But I was aware of Claire the entire time. Where she stood, who she talked to, how she laughed at something Graham said while checking her phone. As the sun started to set, most people began packing up their contributions and saying their goodbyes. I was loading Mom's empty dishes into her car when Claire approached. Thank you for helping with the frames yesterday, she said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Normal conversation between neighbors. No problem. The gallery appreciates community support. Happy to help. She was standing close enough that I could smell her perfume under the evening air, close enough that I could see the small silver bracelet on her wrist, close enough that when she handed me her business card, in case your mother needs anything for future events, our fingers brushed again. Have a good evening, Evan. You too, Mrs. Whitmore. But she was already walking back to Graham, who was loading their wine glasses into an expensive-looking cooler. That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom and stared at the ceiling. The business card sat on my nightstand next to my phone and my keys. Plain white cardstock with black lettering, her name, title, phone number, and email address. I picked it up twice before falling asleep. Sunday morning, Mom made pancakes and talked about how nice it was to have me home, how much easier the neighborhood events were with an extra pair of hands, how Claire had mentioned I was such a helpful young man. She's had a hard year, Mom said, flipping a pancake with more force than necessary. How do you mean? Graham's been traveling more. Some big merger he's working on. Claire throws herself into the gallery work, but Mom shrugged. A woman needs her husband around sometimes. I ate my pancakes and tried not to think about what that meant. Monday morning, I was back at the gym by 6:30. Noah was setting up the front desk and complaining about having to open early for the executive members who liked to work out before the regular people arrived. Claire came in at 7:15 again, earlier than her usual time. She signed in at the front desk and nodded at both of us. Morning. Morning, Noah replied. Starting early today? Couldn't sleep. She walked to her usual treadmill without looking back. I was checking the settings on the rowing machines nearby. Normal work. Normal reason to be in that part of the gym. But I listened to her footsteps on the rubber belt. Steady pace. Not too fast. She always ran like she was thinking about something else entirely. After 20 minutes, she stopped, stepped off the machine, walked to the water fountain, and then she dropped her water bottle. It rolled under the weight bench I was currently cleaning. I picked it up and handed it to her. Thank you. Sure. Our fingers touched when she took the bottle back. Just for a second, just enough to feel the warmth of her skin. Evan? Yeah? Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what it is? The question caught me off guard. Not because it was inappropriate, but because it was exactly how I'd been feeling since I moved back home. Like I was in some kind of holding pattern, waiting for real life to start. Every day, I said. She nodded slowly. I thought so. Then she walked away, leaving me standing there with a cleaning cloth and the smell of her perfume in the air. Tuesday brought the kind of autumn weather that made you want to drive with the windows down and take the long way home. I was leaving the gym around 4:30 when I saw Claire's Range Rover in the parking lot of the small medical complex next door. She was sitting in the driver's seat, talking on her phone. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her face looked strained, tired. She kept running her free hand through her hair. I thought about knocking on her window, asking if she was okay, but that would have been crossing a line we'd agreed not to cross. So I got in my truck and drove home. 20 minutes later, she knocked on Mom's back door. Marla, do you have a minute? Mom invited her in for coffee. I was in the living room, supposedly watching television, but actually listening to their conversation in the kitchen. I cut myself on a picture frame, Claire said. It's not serious, but it's deeper than I thought. Oh, honey, let me see. It's on my finger. I was trying to move one of the larger pieces by myself. Evan! Mom called. Could you bring the first aid kit from the bathroom? I found them at the kitchen table. Claire was holding a paper towel around her left index finger. There was blood on the towel, but not much. Mom was fussing over her like she was a child who'd scraped her knee. Here, I set the first aid kit on the table and opened it. You don't need to, Claire started. It's fine, Mom said. Evan's good with this stuff. He took a first aid course when he started working at the gym. Claire looked at me. I looked at the first aid kit. Okay, she said quietly. I sat down across from her. She extended her hand, palm up. The cut was on the side of her finger, about an inch long, not deep enough for stitches, but deep enough to need proper bandaging. This might sting, I said, opening an antiseptic wipe. I can handle it. I cleaned the cut carefully, trying not to notice how soft her hands were, how her nails were perfectly manicured, how her wedding ring caught the kitchen light. But I did notice, and she noticed me noticing. Almost done, I said. I wrapped her finger with a small bandage, making sure it was tight enough to protect the cut but not so tight that it restricted circulation. It was the first time I shook without being cold. Thank you, she said when I finished. You're welcome. She flexed her finger, testing the bandage. Perfect. Keep it dry for a day or two, I said. Change the bandage tomorrow. Yes, doctor. She smiled, and for a moment the tension in the room shifted to something lighter, something that felt almost normal. Mom poured fresh coffee and insisted Claire stay for dinner. Graham was traveling again, and Mom didn't like the idea of her eating alone. Claire accepted, and I found myself setting an extra place at the table. We ate leftover meatloaf and mashed potatoes while Mom talked about the upcoming fall fundraiser for the Literacy Foundation. Claire listened and asked questions and complimented Mom's cooking. I mostly ate in silence and tried not to stare at the bandage on her finger. After dinner, Claire helped with the dishes while I took out the trash. When I came back inside, they were standing at the sink together, laughing about something that had happened at last year's fundraiser. Evan, tell Claire about the time you fixed Mrs. Patterson's garbage disposal, Mom said. It's not that interesting. Everything's interesting if you tell it right, Claire said. So, I told the story. How Mrs. Patterson had called at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, convinced her garbage disposal was broken beyond repair. How I'd found a fork stuck in the blades and had it working again in 5 minutes. How she'd tried to pay me $50 for 5 minutes of work. Claire laughed. A real laugh, not the polite one she used at neighborhood gatherings. It lit up her whole face. You're handy to have around, she said. That's what I tell him, Mom added. He's good with his hands. The comment was innocent. Mom meant it innocently. But the way Claire looked at me when she said it, I should go, Claire said suddenly. Graham will be calling soon. She thanked Mom for dinner and me for the first aid. She gathered her purse and jacket from the chair where she'd left them. But she also left my hoodie there. I didn't realize it until after she'd gone, until Mom was loading the dishwasher and humming that tune she always hummed during cleanup, until I went to get my hoodie from the chair and found it wasn't there. Where's my hoodie? I asked. Mom looked at the chair. Claire must have taken it by mistake. Her jacket's similar, but it wasn't similar. My hoodie was gray cotton with a small logo from the gym. Her jacket was black wool with silver buttons. There was no way to confuse them. I'll get it back tomorrow, I said. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure she'll realize the mistake and bring it back. But I had a feeling it wasn't a mistake. The next morning, I walked the dog past Claire's house on my way to work. Her porch light was on, even though the sun was already up. Graham's Range Rover wasn't in the driveway. I thought about knocking on the door, making up some excuse, asking for my hoodie back. Instead, I kept walking. At the gym, Noah was dealing with a broken air conditioning unit and 3 complaining members. I helped him move equipment away from the malfunctioning unit and set up fans to keep the air circulating. Your mom's friend didn't come in today, Noah said while we worked. Okay. First time in 2 weeks she's missed her morning run. Maybe she's sick. Maybe. Noah looked at me sideways. Or maybe she's avoiding someone. I pretended to be very interested in the fan placement. That afternoon, Mom asked me to drive her to Claire's gallery. She needed to drop off some photographs from the charity gala for Claire to use in thank you notes to donors. The gallery was busier than usual. A local artist was hanging a new exhibition, and Claire was directing the placement of each piece with the precision of a general planning a battle. Marla, she smiled when she saw us, but it looked strained. Perfect timing. I just finished the donor list from Saturday. You work too hard, Mom said, handing over the photograph envelope. Keeps me busy. Claire glanced at me. Hello, Evan. Hi. I think I accidentally took your hoodie last night. It's in my car. Let me grab it. She walked toward the back exit where her car was parked. I followed, leaving Mom to admire the new artwork. In the parking lot, Claire opened her trunk and pulled out my hoodie, but instead of handing it to me immediately, she held it for a moment. It smells like your house, she said quietly. What does that mean? Coffee, laundry detergent, something warm. She looked up at me. Safety. She handed me the hoodie. Our fingers brushed again, and this time, neither of us pulled away quickly. Claire. I know. She stepped back, creating distance between us. I know what I'm doing, and I know I shouldn't be doing it. Then why are you? Because. She looked around the empty parking lot, then back at me. Because I've been married for 15 years, and I've never felt as seen as I did when you bandaged my finger. The honesty of it hit me in the chest like a physical blow. What do you want me to do with that? I asked. Nothing. Everything. I don't know. She shook her head. Go home, Evan. Go home and forget I said anything. But as I walked back into the gallery with my hoodie folded over my arm, I knew forgetting wasn't an option. Mom lifted my hoodie from Claire's chair like a question she didn't want answered. Actually, that happened 2 days later, on Friday afternoon. I'd gone to the gallery to help Claire hang some heavy frames for the new exhibition. She'd texted Mom asking if Evan was available for quick manual labor, and Mom had volunteered me before I could respond. The gallery was closed to visitors while we worked, just Claire and me and the afternoon light streaming through the front windows. She directed while I measured and marked wall space and lifted frames into place. A little higher on the left. Perfect. I stepped down from the ladder and moved it to the next position. Claire checked her notes and pointed to a spot near the back corner. One more. The landscape piece. It was the largest frame, easily 4 feet wide and heavy enough that we both had to lift it. We positioned it carefully, Claire guiding from below while I secured the hanging wire to the wall mount. How does it look? I called down. Beautiful. But when I looked down, she wasn't looking at the painting. She was looking at me. I climbed down the ladder slowly. When I reached the bottom, we were standing close together in the narrow space between the artwork and a display case. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Close enough that when she breathed, I breathed the same air. Thank you, she said, for hanging pictures, for being here, for helping, for. She trailed off, then shook her head. For being exactly who you are. I set my hands on either side of her face, gently, like she might break, like she might disappear if I moved too fast. She didn't pull away. For a moment, we stood like that, not kissing, not even touching beyond my hands on her cheeks, just breathing the same air and looking at each other like we were memorizing something we'd never see again. Then, the front door chimed. We stepped apart instantly. Claire smoothed her hair and walked toward the front of the gallery. I picked up the level and pretended to check the alignment of the frame we'd just hung. Claire? Mom's voice echoed from the entrance. I brought you that contact list we discussed. Coming, Claire called back. She looked at me over her shoulder. Her cheeks were flushed, her breathing slightly uneven, but her voice was perfectly normal when she greeted Mom. I stayed in the back corner, adjusting and readjusting the frame placement until I heard them talking near the front desk. Normal conversation about donor contacts and fundraising strategies. Nothing unusual. When I finally walked to the front of the gallery, Mom was perched on a stool by the main desk, going through papers with Claire. My hoodie was draped over the back of an empty chair nearby. All finished? Mom asked. All finished. Wonderful. Claire, this place looks amazing. You have such an eye for presentation. Thank you. And thank Evan. He's been invaluable today. Mom glanced at the hoodie, then at me, then at Claire. Something shifted in her expression. Not suspicion exactly, but awareness. She stood up and walked over to the chair, picked up my hoodie, held it for a moment like she was weighing it. You left this here yesterday too, she said to me. It's warm in here when you're working, I said. Mmm. She folded the hoodie neatly and tucked it under her arm. Ready to go? In the car, Mom was quiet for the first few blocks. Then, she turned down the radio and cleared her throat. You and Claire have been spending time together. It wasn't a question. Helping with frames, gallery stuff, like today. Like today, she repeated. She needed help. You said I should help. I did say that. Mom turned into our driveway and put the car in park, but she didn't get out immediately. Evan? Yeah? Claire's a lovely woman, and she's been a good friend to our family. But, but what? But she's married and lonely, and sometimes lonely married women make choices they wouldn't normally make. The words hung between us like smoke from a fire neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I'm not doing anything wrong, I said. I know you're not, but that doesn't mean you're not doing anything dangerous. That night, I sat in my room with the door closed and my phone in my hands. I'd started typing a text to Claire 3 different times, deleted it 3 different times. Finally, I settled on something simple. Thank you for letting me help today. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before hitting send. Her response came back 2 minutes later. Thank you for earlier. Let's be careful. I typed, okay, then deleted a longer message that would have said too much, would have admitted too much. But I saved her number in my phone, and I kept her business card in my wallet. And I lay awake thinking about the way she'd looked at me in that narrow space between the artwork and the display case, like she was memorizing something she'd never see again, like I was doing the same thing. The storm hit Tuesday evening while I was delivering frames to the gallery after hours. Claire had texted Mom asking if I could drop them off before Wednesday's exhibition opening. The gallery would be closed, but she'd leave the back door unlocked. Thunder rolled overhead as I carried the last frame from my truck. The rain started just as I reached the back entrance, fat drops that turned into sheets within seconds. I knocked and called out, It's Evan. I have the frames. Back here, Claire's voice echoed from somewhere inside. The gallery felt different at night, quieter, more intimate. The emergency lighting cast everything in soft shadows, making the artwork look like secrets hanging on the walls. I found Claire in the back office, surrounded by invoices and exhibition catalogs. She looked up when I entered, and something passed between us. Recognition, maybe, or inevitability. "Thank you for bringing these so late," she said. "I know. It's an inconvenience." "It's fine." I set the frames against the wall where she indicated. Outside, thunder crashed closer than before. The lights flickered. "Sounds like it's getting worse out there," I said. "The weather service issued a severe storm warning. You should probably head home before—" The lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in dim amber. But it was quiet emergency lighting. No hum from the air conditioning, no buzz from the fluorescent fixtures, just Claire's breathing and mine and the sound of rain hammering the roof. "Well," she said, "that's unfortunate timing." I pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight. "Do you have a flashlight?" "In the supply closet, but Evan, there's something you should know about this building." "What?" "When the power goes out, the electronic locks engage automatically. Security feature. We're locked in until power comes back or someone resets the system from outside." I stared at her in the amber light. "Locked in?" "Locked in." She called the building management company, got an answering service that promised to send someone as soon as the storm passes. Could be an hour, could be 3 hours. "I'm sorry," she said after hanging up. "I should have warned you about the locks. It's not your fault." But we both knew this was dangerous, not because of any actual threat, but because we'd be alone together for hours with nowhere to go and nothing to distract us from the thing we'd been dancing around for weeks. Claire led me to the main gallery space where the emergency lighting was brightest. We sat on the small bench positioned in front of her favorite painting, a landscape of a woman looking away from the viewer towards something beyond the frame. "Tell me about this one," I said, nodding toward the painting. "It's called Elsewhere. The artist said she painted it during a difficult time in her marriage. The subject is looking toward something she wants, but can't have." "What does she want?" The artist never said. That's what makes it powerful. Everyone sees their own impossible thing. Thunder crashed overhead. Claire jumped slightly, and without thinking, I put my hand on her arm. She didn't pull away. "What do you see when you look at it?" I asked. "Lately?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I see myself at 25, before I married Graham, before I became the person everyone expected me to be." What was she like? 25-year-old Claire? Reckless, honest about what she wanted, brave enough to ask for it. What happened to her? She grew up, made sensible choices, married a good man who could provide stability. Claire looked at me. She stopped asking for things that scared her. The space between us felt charged, electric like the storm outside. "What scares you now?" I asked. "This," she whispered, "sitting here with you, wanting things I have no right to want." Her hand moved to cover mine. Her wedding ring pressed against my knuckle, but neither of us pulled away. "Claire, I know this is wrong. I know I'm older and married and supposed to be the responsible one. But sitting here with you, I feel like that 25-year-old girl again, the one who wasn't afraid to want impossible things." We sat like that for what felt like hours, her hand on mine, the amber light making everything feel dreamlike and unreal, the sound of rain creating a wall between us and the outside world. "Tell me something true," she said finally. "What do you mean?" "Something you've never told anyone. Something real." I thought about it. I moved back home because I was afraid. Of what? Of failing, of proving everyone right who said I'd never amount to anything, of being 24 and having nothing to show for it except debt and a job fixing other people's broken things. She squeezed my hand. "That's not failure. That's life." "What about you?" Tell me something true. I married Graham because he was safe, not because I loved him, but because loving him felt like the responsible thing to do. And now, she paused, now I'm 38 and wondering if I've wasted 15 years being responsible. Have you? I don't know, but sitting here with you, I remember what it feels like to want someone who sees me, really sees me. Not the gallery director or the perfect wife or the woman who always has her life together. Just me. I turned my hand palm up so our fingers could intertwine properly. Her skin was soft from that citrus vanilla hand cream she always used. I see you, I said. I know you do. That's what scares me. We were leaning closer now, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, close enough that her breath warmed my face. We shouldn't, she whispered. I know. If someone saw us, no one's here. If your mother knew, she doesn't have to know. Claire's free hand moved to my face, fingers tracing my jawline like she was memorizing the shape of it. You're too young to understand what this would cost, she said. Maybe, but I'm old enough to know what I want. What do you want? You? The word hung between us like a confession, like a prayer, like something that could change everything if we let it. Claire's thumb brushed across my cheek. Her eyes searched mine. If I kiss you, she whispered, everything changes. Maybe everything needs to change. She leaned closer. I could smell her perfume, feel the warmth of her skin. Her lips were an inch from mine. Then, the lights came back on. The sudden brightness broke the spell instantly. Claire pulled back, blinking in the harsh fluorescent light. The moment shattered like glass hitting concrete. The power's back, she said unnecessarily. Yeah. She stood up, smoothing her skirt and hair. Professional Claire was back, replacing the woman who'd been about to kiss me in the amber darkness. You should go, she said without looking at me, before the storm gets worse again. I stood up too, feeling like I was moving through water. Everything felt heavy and slow and wrong. Claire, please, just go home, Evan. The janitor arrived 5 minutes later to reset the security system. I loaded the empty frame boxes into my truck while Claire signed paperwork and pretended nothing had happened. But as I stepped out into the rain, she caught my arm. You don't have to run, she whispered. Then she let me go and closed the door behind me. I drove home through the storm with my hands shaking on the steering wheel and the smell of her perfume still in my clothes. The next morning, I created excuses to be places where Claire might be. The gym, the coffee shop near her gallery, the mailbox cluster at the end of our street. She was at the gym, running on her usual treadmill. But when she saw me, she looked away quickly and finished her workout early. No one noticed. Everything okay with your mom's friend? Why wouldn't it be? She looked like she saw a ghost when you walked in. Maybe she's having a bad day. Maybe. Noah gave me that look again, the one that said he knew more than he was letting on. I texted Claire that afternoon. Do you still need help with the exhibition setup? Her response came back an hour later. Gallery closed for inventory. Thank you anyway. But the gallery wasn't closed for inventory. I drove by on my way home from the gym and saw her car in the parking lot, saw her silhouette moving behind the windows. She was avoiding me. Thursday brought more of the same. Claire's treadmill sat empty during her usual morning run. Her car wasn't at the grocery store or the coffee shop or any of the places I'd grown accustomed to seeing it. I walked the dog past her house twice. Graham's Range Rover was in the driveway, but the curtains were drawn. No sign of life. Mrs. Delaney was watering her flower boxes when I made my second pass. She waved me over with the kind of smile that meant trouble. Evan, dear, how lovely to see you out with the dog. Evening, Mrs. Delaney. Such a responsible young man. Your mother must be so proud. Thank you. It's wonderful when young people help their neighbors, though I suppose one must be careful about appearances. The word hung in the air like a threat. Appearances? Oh, you know how people talk in neighborhoods like this, especially when there are age differences involved or marital considerations. My stomach dropped. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm sure you don't, dear. I'm just saying it's important to maintain proper boundaries for everyone's sake. She went back to watering her flowers, but the message was clear. She'd seen something, or suspected something, and she wanted me to know that she was watching. That night, I sat at my bedroom window looking toward Claire's house. The porch light was off, had been off for 3 days straight. I missed her, missed the possibility of her, missed the way she looked at me like I was worth looking at. Friday morning brought crisis. Mom was in full panic mode, tearing through papers at the kitchen table while the dishwasher hummed its familiar tune. I can't find them anywhere, she kept saying. The signed donor sheets. I need them for the grant application, and they're due today. When did you last have them? Saturday night after the barbecue. I know I put them somewhere safe, but she pushed her hands through her hair. If I can't find them, we lose the funding for next year's literacy program. I thought about Claire's meticulous organization, how she kept copies of everything in both physical and digital formats. What if I called Claire? She might have duplicates. Would you? Oh, that would save my life. I sent an email instead of calling. More professional. Less chance of saying something I'd regret. Hi, Claire. Mom misplaced the signed donor sheets from Saturday's event. Do you happen to have copies? She needs them for a grant application due today. Thanks, Evan. The response came back within an hour. Professional, polite, cold. Evan, please find attached the donor sheets from Saturday's event. I hope this helps with the grant application. Best regards, Claire. 3 PDF files, perfectly organized, everything Mom needed, but no warmth, no personal message, nothing to suggest we'd sat in amber light 3 nights ago and almost changed both our lives. Saturday brought rain again. Not the dramatic storm of Tuesday night, but steady, soaking rain that made everything gray and sad. I was jogging Claire's usual route, trying to clear my head, when the wind caught something from the Whitmore's porch. A thin wool scarf, cream-colored, lifted into the air and drifted across the street. It landed in our front yard, tangled in Mom's rose bushes. I knew I should ignore it, leave it for the wind to take somewhere else, pretend I hadn't seen it. Instead, I untangled it carefully and walked to Claire's front door. I rang the bell once and set the scarf on the porch mat. Then, I walked away without waiting for an answer. From my bedroom window, I watched the porch light click on 10 minutes later, watched it click off again. No door opened, but the scarf disappeared. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the woman in the painting at the gallery, the one looking towards something she wanted but couldn't have, the one the artist had painted during a difficult time in her marriage. At 2:07 a.m., my phone lit up the darkness. Thank you for the scarf. Porch light if safe to talk. I stared at the message for a full minute, read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Then I typed back, okay. I waited by my window until the porch light clicked on across the street. The cul-de-sac was silent except for the distant hum of air conditioning units and the soft buzz of streetlights. I slipped out the back door and walked across the wet grass. The night air was cool against my skin, damp from the earlier rain. Claire was standing on her porch steps, wrapped in a cardigan over her nightgown. She looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Hi, she whispered. Hi. I stopped on the sidewalk 6 feet from her porch, close enough to see her clearly in the yellow light, close enough to smell the faint trace of her citrus vanilla hand cream, not close enough to touch. I've been thinking, she said. About what? About Tuesday night, about what almost happened. And I realized something. She pulled the cardigan tighter around herself. For 15 years, I've been invisible, the perfect wife, the efficient gallery director, the neighbor who always volunteers for committees and brings dessert to barbecues. But invisible. You're not invisible to me. I know. That's what I realized. She looked down at her hands. When you bandaged my finger, when we sat in that amber light, for the first time in years, I felt seen, really seen. Not as someone's wife or someone's employee or someone's neighbor, just as me. That's all I've ever seen. I know, and that's why this has to stop. The words hit me like cold water. What? Evan, I'm 38 years old. I'm married to a man who trusts me. I'm your mother's best friend. I can't, we can't, we haven't done anything wrong. Haven't we? She looked at me directly. I think about you every morning when I decide whether to go to the gym. I rearrange my schedule hoping to run into you at the grocery store. I asked you to help with frames I could have handled myself, just to spend time with you. So? So I'm acting like a teenager with a crush, and you deserve someone who can actually be with you, not someone who has to sneak around and make excuses and lie to everyone she cares about. What if I don't want someone else? Then you're not thinking clearly. Her voice was gentle but firm. I'm choosing my marriage, Evan, not because it's passionate or exciting, but because it's the life I built, the commitment I made, the promise I have to keep. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she deserved to be happy, that 15 years of being invisible was enough. But standing there in the yellow porch light, looking at her face, tired and sad and determined, I understood. This wasn't about what we wanted. It was about who we were willing to become. I need you to be okay with this, she said quietly. I need to know that we can still be neighbors, that I can still be friends with your mother, that we can exist in the same small world without making it impossible for everyone else. I looked at her for a long moment, memorized the way she looked in the porch light with moths dancing around her head, the way her hair fell across her shoulders, the way her hands moved when she talked. Be kind, where you can see me, she whispered. What does that mean? It means wave when we pass on the street, help when I need help, but don't create reasons to need help. Treat me like the neighbor I am, not like the woman I was for 5 minutes in the dark. Can you do that? Pretend it never happened? I'm not pretending it never happened. I'm choosing what happens next. She stepped back toward her front door. The conversation was over. Good night, Evan. Good night, Claire. I walked back to my house through the damp grass, past the streetlights and the sleeping houses and the lives that continued unchanged, while mine rearranged itself around a 5-minute conversation on a porch. The next morning, I made coffee for Mom and helped her prepare donor packets for the next Literacy Foundation mailing. She hummed while she worked, and the dishwasher hummed along with her, and everything felt almost normal. You seem better today, Mom said as I sealed the last envelope. Better how? More settled, like you've figured something out. I had figured something out. I'd figured out that some doors stay open and some doors close, and the difference isn't always up to you. Want me to run these to the post office? I asked. That would be wonderful. On my way out, I passed Claire backing out of her driveway. We made eye contact through her windshield. She lifted her hand in a small wave. I waved back. Neighbors. Nothing more. Nothing less. Monday morning, Claire was back at the gym. Treadmill number 3, second row. Same time as always. She nodded at the front desk when she signed in. Morning, she said to Noah. Good to see you back, Mrs. Whitmore. I was replacing a burned-out bulb in the equipment room. Normal work, normal reason to be there, but I could see her in my peripheral vision, running at her steady pace. After her workout, she stopped at the front desk to sign out. I was close enough to hear her thank Noah for keeping the equipment in good condition. Evan does most of the maintenance, Noah said. He's good with his hands. Claire glanced at me briefly. I'm sure he is. Then she walked out without saying goodbye. That afternoon, she left a folded note at the front desk. Thank you for the porch. See, I didn't reply. Tuesday, I helped Mom prepare for another neighborhood barbecue. Same park, same folding tables, same potato salad, and store-bought wine. Claire and Graham arrived on time. She wore a blue sundress that made her look younger, and Graham was actually present for the entire event instead of taking work calls in his car. Evan, Graham called across the park. Good to see you, son. How's the job? Can't complain. That's what I like to hear. Honest work builds character. Claire was setting up the dessert table nearby. She moved efficiently, arranging plates and napkins with the same precision she used at the gallery. When she finished, she wiped her hands on a small towel and looked around for something else to organize. Our eyes met across the picnic table. She smiled slightly, the kind of smile neighbors give each other at community events. Polite, appropriate, empty of everything except good manners. Evan, could you help me carry the coolers back to the car? Mom asked as people began cleaning up. As I loaded the empty dishes and leftover food, I was aware of Claire helping Graham pack their contributions into expensive-looking containers. They moved like a team that had been working together for years. Efficient, practiced, married. Mrs. Delaney appeared beside me as I closed Mom's trunk. Such a lovely evening, she said. Everyone's so well behaved. Yes, ma'am. It's wonderful when people know their place in the community, when they respect the natural order of things. She patted my arm with approval and walked away. The message was clear. Whatever she'd suspected, whatever she'd seen or heard, she was satisfied that order had been restored. Wednesday afternoon, I delivered a donation certificate from the gym to Claire's gallery. She was meeting with potential donors, so I left it with the assistant at the front desk. But Claire appeared in the lobby as I was leaving. Evan, thank you for bringing this by. No problem. And thank you for the other night, for helping me with the donor lists when Mom was in crisis, and for returning my scarf. Her voice was carefully neutral, professional. But then she said, it smelled like rain for days. The comment was small, probably meaningless to anyone who might overhear, but I heard the weight underneath it, the acknowledgement that some moments linger even when we try to wash them away. The rain was pretty heavy that night, I said. Yes, it was. We looked at each other for a moment, long enough for me to see the woman who'd sat in amber light and told me she felt invisible, long enough to remember the weight of her hand in mine. Then the spell broke, and we were just neighbors again. Have a good afternoon, she said. You too. I walked to the painting she'd shown me that night, the woman looking elsewhere, looking towards something she wanted but couldn't have. I understood now why Claire loved it. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is look away. The following week settled into new routines. I saw Claire at the gym most mornings, at the grocery store occasionally, walking her dog past our house in the evenings. We waved when we saw each other, said hello when we were close enough for conversation, helped each other when help was needed and appropriate. She was kind where I could see her. I was careful not to create reasons for her to need help. It almost worked. Friday evening, I was walking Mom's dog past the mailbox cluster when Claire appeared with her mail. We reached the boxes at the same time. Evening, she said, evening. She sorted through bills and catalogs while I checked Mom's box. Normal neighbor interaction. Nothing remarkable. But when she dropped a piece of mail, I picked it up for her. Our fingers brushed as I handed it back. Just for a second. Just enough to feel the warmth of her skin. She looked at me then like she had that night on the porch. Like she was memorizing something she'd never see again. Thank you, she whispered. Then we walked away in opposite directions without speaking. That night, I sat on the back steps after helping Mom clean up from dinner. The dishwasher hummed inside. Moths gathered around the porch light. I thought about the woman in the painting, about amber emergency lighting, about the weight of a wedding ring against my knuckle. I thought about doors that close and doors that stay open and the difference between wanting something and being able to have it. As I got up to go inside, I glanced toward Claire's house. Her porch light flickered once. Maybe a moth brushing against the sensor, maybe something else entirely. I nodded to the empty street and kept walking. Some doors don't shut. They learn to rest quietly on their hinges. If the light flickers, I keep walking.